The warm glow of the evening sun filtered through the campus library's glass windows. It wasn't the most romantic setting, but for some reason it had become the unofficial meeting spot for them and Cutie since the Dare incident. At least that's what Cutie's friend liked to call it. Cutie was currently seated at a table near the back, her notebook open but untouched, her pen spinning aimlessly between her fingers. Across from her, Taehyung leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his signature smoke firmly in place. "Let me guess," he drawled, his deep voice cutting through the silence. "You are pretending to study so you can stare at me without it being obvious?" Cutie rolled her eyes, but could not stop the slight upward curve of her lips. "Please, Kim Taehyung, if I wanted to stare at you, I would do it unapologetically. Subtlety isn't my style." "Oh, I have noticed," he said, leaning forward now. The shift in his posture made her heart skip a beat. "You are a walking neon sign of chaos. It's kind of endearing." Cutie narrowed her eyes at him, though her cheeks betrayed her with a slight flush. "Endearing? Whoa, you are really pulling out the compliments today. Should I be flattered or suspicious?" "Both," he said smoothly, his gaze tipping to her lips for the briefest second. The air between them was electric, the tension thick enough to drone in. Taehyung's intense gaze locked onto hers, and for a moment Cutie forgot how to breathe. But then his smirk softened, replaced by something more genuine, almost hesitant. "So," he said, his voice quieter now, "are you going to tell me why you did it?" Cutie blinked. "Did what?" "The dare," he clarified. "Imitating me, sitting at my table, basically setting yourself up to get roasted. Most people would not even try." Cutie hesitated, twirling her pen to buy herself a moment. She could feel his gaze piercing through her, demanding an answer. "It was just a joke," she said finally, her voice light but her tone uncertain. Taehyung leaned even closer, his face now mere inches from hers. "Don't lie to me, Cutie. You are terrible at it." Her breath hitched as the space between them dissolved. She could smell his collagen, warm, woodsy, intoxicating, and it was doing dangerous things to her focus. "Fine," she muttered. "My friends dared me to do it. They thought it would be funny." "And you thought what?" he pressed, his voice dropping lower. "I thought," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "that you would probably get annoyed, maybe yell at me, and then forget about it by the next day. I didn't expect—" Her words trailed off, but Taehyung wasn't about to let her off the hook. "Didn't expect what?" "That you would look at me like that," she admitted, her cheeks burning. Taehyung's lips twitched into a small smile, one that held none of his usual smugness. "Like what?" Like I am the only person in the room, she confessed, barely audible. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The tension was unbearable. The air between them charged with unspoken words and unacknowledged feelings. I have been looking at you like that for a long time, Taehyung said finally, his voice steady but thick with emotion. Cutie's eyes snapped up to meet his, her heart pounding in her chest. What? You heard me, he said, his gaze unwavering. I have liked you for months, Cutie, but you never noticed. Too busy avoiding me like I was some kind of plague. Cutie blinked, utterly speechless. I wasn't avoiding you. I just thought I was unapproachable, dangerous, too much trouble. He guessed, his tone lighter now, but still laced with vulnerability. She nodded slightly, and he chuckled, shaking his head. You are not wrong, but you drive me crazy, Cutie. The way you laugh, the way you argue with me, like you are not terrified. I am not terrified, she interjected. Her cheeks flushed. He grinned. Exactly. You are the only person who isn't. And it's infuriating. Infuriating? She repeated, raising an eyebrow. And addictive, he added softly, his eyes dropping to her lips. Before she could respond, Taehyung closed the gap between them, his lips brushing against her in a kiss so soft, so tentative, it felt like a question. Cutie's heart exploded in her chest, her hands instinctively reaching up to grip the front of his jacket. The kiss deepened, slow and passionate, his hands sliding to her waist and pulling her closer. Cutie gasped as she felt his body pressed firmly against hers, his warmth seeping into her. Then, she murmured against his lips, her fingers curling into his hair. Hmm, he replied, his lips moving to the sensitive spot just below her ear. He placed a feather-light kiss there, before lightly sucking, drawing a soft gasp from her. You are impossible, she whispered, her voice shaky but filled with affection. And you are irresistible, he countered, his voice husky as he trailed kisses down her neck. The sound of loud laughter shattered the moment, and Cutie practically jumped out of her seat. She turned to see Jisoo, Lisa, and Jenny standing a few feet away, their faces lit with amusement. Well, 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 Jisoo drawled, crossing her arms. Looks like the dare had a very unexpected outcome. Lisa grinned wickedly. Should we tell everyone that Cutie tamed the infamous bad boy? Or do you want to make the announcement yourself? Cutie groaned, hiding her face in her hands, while Tame leaned back in his chair, completely unbothered. Feel free to spread the word, he said with a smirk. I have got nothing to hide. Jenny snickered. You are awfully smug for someone who just got caught making out in public. Can you blame me? Taehyung replied, wrapping an arm around Cutie's waist and pulling her closer. Look at her. Cutie shoved his chest playfully, her face burning. You are insufferable. And you love it, he teased, placing a quick kiss on her temple. As their friends continued to tease and laugh, Cutie found herself laughing along with them, her heart lighter than it had ever been. Despite the chaos, despite the embarrassment, she could not stop smiling. Then leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. You are mine now. You know that, right? Her cheeks flushed, but she turned to meet his gaze, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Only if you are mine too. Dee, he whispered, capturing her lips in another kiss. This one deeper, more passionate, as if sealing a promise. Around them, their friends cheered and whistled, but neither of them cared. For the first time, everything felt perfect.